Hello and welcome to the VDMA Circular Economy Forum. My name is Thorsten Kühmann. My guest today is Christine Bunte. You're a Senior Manager Industry Advocacy, EU Government Relations within the BASF company. Thank you for coming.
Well, thanks a lot for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
We would like to speak about export models, waste management, waste to value. Mm-hmm. Now, BASF has set a circular economy program and a sustainable development program as well. Mm-hmm. Now, why has BASF done this? What's the motivation behind that? For how long has this been going on now?
Mm-hmm. So, you mentioned already correctly that we have, of course, a whole sustainability program also on plastics, but also on the development of our whole portfolio. So there we look at, okay, what products do we offer and how do we give value to society with our products? But then nonetheless, when you look at, for example, plastics, BASF is a big plastics producer as well. We produce, for example, for construction industry, automotive, consumer, and for industrial appliances. Then you see, of course, the whole debate around plastics, which you cannot escape here on the K Fair, and which is also good that we have it, that we have the discussion about sustainability of plastics waste in particular, how is it being handled. Mm-hmm. And for us as BASF, when we see this element, and especially the question of how do we get to a better waste management globally of plastics waste, we really see we cannot do it alone. It's a joint effort. And this is why we have decided to join an industry alliance to end plastic waste, brackets, in the environment. Mm-hmm. And in the industry alliance, we really come together from all parts of the value chain, so from the producers, from the brand owners, and also the waste industry, to come and develop solutions together to find a better, more sustainable handling of plastic waste, especially in the areas where it's lacking today.
And how many partners has the alliance got?
Very good point. We are now 42 members. We are always open for new members. So if you are interested, please reach out to me after the session or also go to the Alliance homepage. We will be very pleased to have more members and to become an even bigger alliance. Okay, very good.
Could you say a few words about the goals of that alliance?
Yes, so the overarching goal is really to end plastic waste in the alliance, in the environment. We will not, or what we can do as an alliance is really to contribute to solutions which then have the potential to scale and to become global and to be really applied on a larger scale. And we have projects initiated around 4 strategic pillars. This is on the one hand infrastructure. I mentioned this a lot. You really need infrastructure for properly handling plastic waste. It is about also education. You also, if the infrastructure is no good, if nobody's using it, so you really need to work with people, also with public authorities, to set, to get the mindset right and to also make the infrastructure working. It's the two together. But then it's also about innovation. So this includes, for example, also projects which aim to prevent or increase recycling, develop for example, new recycling methodologies. And then the 4th pillar is clean up. Now, the idea is not to say, let's clean it up and then we can keep putting it in. But you may have areas where, for example, you have already accumulated a lot of waste and you can really efficiently collect it. Or you may, for example, when you look at the 10 rivers which transport the vast majority of land-based plastic waste that enters up in the oceans, you can try and prevent it from going from the rivers into the ocean. So these are the 4 strategic pillars. Mm-hmm. And around these 4 pillars, we have set up projects funded by the Alliance when we have called Type A, Type B projects. So the one is Alliance branded projects, and the other one is projects where, for example, the companies work on company owned projects. So the one is more jointly and the one is more company owned, but then also with different members of the Alliance. So the idea is always to get together.
Okay. Could you share one example for us, one project which you've got on?
Yeah, with pleasure. So, for example, one project we have is the Renew Oceans, and this one is starting with the Renew Ganga. I just mentioned that the vast majority of land-based litter comes from a few rivers at land, comes from a few rivers, and the Ganges is one of them. And there we are working with a startup, Renewology. They are establishing waste management along the Ganges River to really get the collection of plastic waste along the river running, to also collect it from where it has already entered the river, to capture it and then utilize this waste, because collecting is the one thing, but if you give value to it and if you utilize, then you have a really motivation for people to actually do this. And they are looking into setting up a pyrolysis plant where you could convert the plastic into diesel, which can then be used by the local communities.
I mean, I could imagine this is not very simple to reach out to the people, to the government there, but also to the local people. How do you do that? How do you make aware of the project? How do you reach out to the people?
It's really about having a team on the ground, and this is not necessarily Alliance staff, but for example the Renewology staff that is there located in India, working then on the one hand with the authorities in the cities and in the communities, but then also really working with the waste pickers that are there, and trying especially to get them involved and to also give them an opportunity by collecting this waste and making it available for processing and recovery in that case, because it goes into diesel ultimately, to really create also value for the local people and for the local for the communities in the end.
So the waste pickers are your partners. You most likely pay them for bringing the waste to a certain point, and what happens then? For the partner, the actual partner is Renewology. So this is a startup owned by an MIT absolvent, by an MIT studied, really young, driven, motivated lady, and she is the one who is really establishing this project on the ground, and then supported by the Alliance. Now, in the end, the idea is really to take the plastic waste and then to convert it into diesel. So it's a pre-step of what we are looking in Europe. They will look into chemical recycling of plastics by pyrolysis, which means taking the plastic, converting it back to an oil, and then for recycling you obviously have to turn it back into new products, which you can do if you feed it into a chemical production. Okay.
Now, this may not always be feasible, you may not always get the right quality, you may not have a chemical production plant right at the Ganges River, so you say, okay, how do we give value to it? Okay, in this case it's diesel. So it is a form of recovering the plastic in this case, and turning it into something useful for the people there.
Okay, so that's the Ganges River, and okay, but we've got the problem at many places. So how many projects have you got, and can someone apply for a project and get it being financed by the Alliance, or how does this work?
Yes, exactly. So we have a lot of projects which are under consideration. We now have a good dozen projects which have been approved.
All of them in Asia or in different regions of the world?
The vast majority so far in Asia.
Okay.
Because we say it's really important to establish the projects there where the need is the greatest. But for example, we also have one which is called the Global Information Project. Obviously that one is global, for example. And there it's about setting up a database that helps people dealing with plastic waste, getting information about what kind of projects are out there. Because as you rightly mentioned, you have the problem on large scale, and then you're doing individual projects, but then these only really contribute to a change if you can scale it. So we try to develop solutions which are in the end scalable, and there, for example, there comes the Global Information Project into play, that others can learn from it and then implement it as well in their communities or in their region.
That is a best practice.
That is what we are really aiming for, exactly.
Okay.
And in that sense, so if you are interested or if you have a great idea, please contact either me or contact the Alliance. We are always really interested to find new ideas that we haven't looked at, and we're definitely open to new projects for sure. So yes, with pleasure.
Last question to you. If you look ahead a couple of years now, what makes this project being a success if you then look back?
I mean, ultimately, if you see that the amount of waste, of plastic waste in the environment is reduced, that is what we all want to achieve. And we touched upon the point of scaling and of being a best case practice, that it's being really implemented. So I think if we can manage to establish functioning local solutions, which are then by knowledge sharing being used more and being spread out across the world, I think that would be really what we could call a success. And it will certainly require continued engagement of us, of industry, of the alliance partners. It's also, of course, a funding question. But then you also still require, for example, the authorities. When you look at, for example, setting up waste management infrastructure in a city, well, you need to do this together with the authorities. But I think they are more than willing. And we also need the consumers. But I think in the end, the current movement around plastics is really a great opportunity of turning this into a success, because you see that really everybody is gathering momentum, is getting active, wants to contribute to change. And I think these are actually the conditions we now have to build on and we now have to make use of in order to make the Alliance a success.
Thank you very much, Christine, for sharing that information with us. That is all about getting plastics waste out of our environment. And thank you again. Thank you very much for watching this, and see you next time. Ciao.